Good evening, everyone. Welcome back to the channel. Today's video is video number 4 in the series of interesting facts about the Pontiac Fiero. We're first going to start with a little bit of history about the car. Most people think, unless they are a true Fiero aficionado, they think that America's first mid-engine sports car was the new generation Corvette. Unfortunately, that's about 3 decades off. The GM, and by extension Pontiac produced Fiero, was America's first mid-engine sports car. Came out, of course, in '84 and was produced until 1988. And we're going to get into that a little later in the video. So the senior project engineer was a gentleman by the name of Hulke Aldecashty, and he worked with a number of other engineers to basically keep this car design idea alive, because GM did their best to kill it on 3 separate occasions. And thankfully, Hulke and his team made it happen, and those of us who own one are very appreciative for his efforts. And I wish he was still alive today. I would shake his hand, and I'm sure all of you would too. So when they designed and developed and began production of this car, GM enforced a very strict $400 million cap on expenditures on developing this new car. In today's dollars, that's over $1 billion, and you would think that, that's a tremendous amount of money for developing a new car, but it's actually not. It's actually a pretty small amount. To stay within the $400 million budget, the old Fiero here is basically a parts bin special. So we'll move around first to the motor. The motor is a 2.8 liter V6. And now this is the original one came with the Iron Duke, of course, and we're going to talk about it a little later in the video. But this particular motor is the 2.8 liter V6. And it was actually borrowed from some other cars that were already in GM production, specifically the Chevy Citation and the Pontiac 6000 STE. It's just a parts bin special. They got what they could where they could to try to save cost. And some more examples of that. The entire rear suspension, the aforementioned engine, and the transaxle, and the brakes all came from the Chevy Citation. The front suspension from '84 to '87, because later in '88 they were completely redesigned the front suspension for much better handling, came from the Chevy Chevette, which was most certainly not known as a high-performance sports car, more commonly known as an econobox. Now, the bodywork on this car is also something that was revolutionary for its time. The GM engineers referred to it as Enduraflex. The interesting thing about the Fiero, for those of you who don't know, this video is for both the Fiero owner and someone who may have just seen it going down the road and wondered what it was. So the entire car, the bodywork of the car, is plastic. And their marketing name for this was Enduraflex. Now, under that is an all steel component frame welded together, a very, very stout, very structurally strong frame. But they literally bolted all the body panels to the outside of the car. And you could get the 308 replicas and the Countach replicas. It allowed you to, well, until Ferrari sued them, you could, because they did it without Ferrari's permission. But you could put all kind of kits on the car and turn it into something pretty cool, until you raised the rear deck lid and realized, no, that's not a Ferrari. So when the Fiero went out of production in '88, that technology actually carried over, because it was used on, for those of you who are old enough to remember this line of cars, it was used on the Saturn line of cars. So it's very revolutionary for its time. So production started on the Fiero in August of '83 as an '84 model. The last car made, the very last Fiero made, was actually a GT model, and it was made on August the 16th, 1988. And I did a little research and come up with the VIN number on that car. So the VIN for the very last Fiero produced is 1 Golf 2 Papa Golf 1195 Juliet Papa 226402. That was the very last one made. Now, we also want to cover the nomenclature on this car. So I'm going to shut the trunk for just a moment. We have Fiero and we have 2M6. So Fiero actually wasn't the original name for the car. It was Pegasus. And we're going to get to that in a minute. We'll go up front. But GM wanted to kind of poke a stick in the eye of Ferrari when this car was in production. So we'll start with 2M6. So that's 2-seat, mid-engine, 6-cylinder. 2M4, of course, was the Iron Duke. But the term Fiero in Italian means very proud. So not only did they try to poke a stick in the eye of Ferrari with the name, the engine covers, you notice on the Ferrari 308, which was the high-performance car of the time, the engine covers are red. So Pontiac did the exact same thing just to try to be like Ferrari. So, a little bit of trivia for you there. Now, we mentioned Pegasus. The original term for the car was Pegasus, and they later, through a naming contest, decided on Fiero. However, they did retain the Pegasus emblem, so I thought that was pretty cool. A little bit of interesting trivia for you there. Now, on this car, there are some things that are very symmetrical. And on this side, we've got the Pontiac emblem. It says SE. And on the other side, we have the Pontiac emblem, and it says SE. So far, we're symmetrical, but that's where it stops. So the intake on the left-hand side, you would think they would make it symmetrical and at least make it match on the other side of the car. No, that costs too much. So it's just plain over here. Another interesting non-symmetrical fact about the car, notice how the right-hand headlight does not say anything. But on the left-hand side, the driver's side, it says Pontiac. So, another interesting thing about the car that most people don't know is the design of the wheels. Now, these were commonly referred to as the high-tech wheels. I'm on the right-hand side of the car, so you notice how the wheels are laid out, okay? Unfortunately, these wheels came out of one mold, and you will notice when we move around to the other side of the car, they're turning in the opposite direction. So depending on which side of the car you're looking at will depend on the direction of the rotation of your wheels. Newer cars, they don't have that. So another interesting feature about this car, and I've got it set out on the other side for you, there were some pretty serious cost savings on the car, and then there's some things that just didn't make any sense. And here's one of the things that didn't make any sense. Of course, like any other car, it has lug nuts, and I pulled the covers off so you can actually see the lug nuts. But in their infinite wisdom, they made plastic lug nut covers that looked like lug nuts to cover the real lug nuts. And there's one sitting on the tire so you can see it. Just little plastic lug nut covers to cover them. I can't imagine what the tooling for that was. Now I'm going to research and find out if that was pulled from other cars too. And if it was, I'll do a video on that. Now, a couple of the interesting cost-saving features of the car to try to stay within that $400 million budget, this is one of them. On the gas cap cover, there is absolutely nowhere to put your gas cap. You have to set it up here or hold it in your hand, whatever, but absolutely nowhere to put the gas cap cover. Weird. Another money-saving feature of this car is the antenna. Plenty of cars in the 80s had retracting antennas, but not the old Fiero. No, that would cost too much. It has a fixed antenna that is a booger to remove should you ever need to remove it. So just a little strange quirks about the car. Now, I mentioned at the beginning of the video that the original engine in this car was the 4-cylinder Iron Duke. That came out in the first production of the car in '84, and boy, did they have some problems. By mid-'87, those cars were burning at a rate of 20 a month. And GM finally had to do a massive recall and just fix all the, I can't imagine how much that recall cost them. But they had to fix numerous issues with the old Iron Duke inline 4 because the cars were literally burning to the ground. So thankfully I have the V6, which is exactly what I wanted. So as always, I hope you found today's video interesting and entertaining. My goal with my YouTube channel is to produce entertaining and educational content for the automotive enthusiast, not just on the Fiero, but on an entire range of cars, on weird, strange, and obscure facts that these cars have that most people don't know. So, as always, if you found today's video entertaining, if you don't mind, please consider subscribing to the channel. Being a new, small YouTube channel, that really helps me out. Thanks for watching, and have an absolutely wonderful day.